Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 and to this, our race reaction for the United States Grand Prix. What a race that was. It's been 3 or 4 weeks now since the last race that we had, but it was definitely worth the wait for that one. That was a hell of a lot of fun. I have the feeling that coming away from it, it might be looked back upon as a controversial one, and I can understand why people would feel that way. There was an awful lot of penalties given out in this race, and I don't think I agreed with a single one of them. We'll get into all of that and so much more here in this video. Before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe. Those are the rules. And a huge shout out to our members, Dakota, The Joyous James, Robin Myers and Cinnamon Strudel. Let's get into this then. Lando Norris is on pole position, Max Verstappen alongside him. Now, coming out of qualifying yesterday, I had the great feeling that one of the Mercedes cars would be starting from the pit lane for today's race. But it is not the one I expected. I thought after Lewis Hamilton's disaster in qualifying yesterday, they'd want to make some significant setup changes and have a pit lane start. But no, he starts from the grid. The Mercedes in the pit lane is that of George Russell. Now, of course, he had the crash yesterday in qualifying. Mercedes had brought some big upgrades to the car this race weekend, but only had one set per car of these upgrade pieces. So when they refixed the car, they didn't have the same set that they had from qualifying, so they had to revert back to the old spec of some parts that they had, which breaks parc fermé and meant that George Russell was starting from pit lane. Lewis Hamilton would stay on the grid, moved up to 17th place because of Russell and also because of Liam Lawson, who was moved down to 19th after an engine penalty. Zhou Guanyu also has an engine penalty, which saw him go from his qualifying position of 20th to 18th, because that's how it works sometimes. As for tyre strategy, it was Hamilton, Colapinto, Lawson, Stroll and Russell all on the hard tyres, everyone else on the mediums. And as we get going, very good start for Max Verstappen, who pulls alongside Lando Norris. Lando leaving the door open to the left-hand side of the track. Max pulls alongside. As he's alongside, Lando squeezes him off to the side. And as they come to the first corner, there's nowhere really Max can go. Takes the corner, pushes Lando out wide. As he does that, the two Ferraris, who have gone to the far right of the track, are able to swoop in, and Leclerc gets past both of them. Sainz gets past Norris. So Leclerc jumps from 4th to 1st in the first corner. Then it was Verstappen, then Sainz, then Lando Norris. Now, I've seen some people say that Max Verstappen should have got a penalty for what he did in turn 1. And I have to say, if that is your opinion, unfortunately you're wrong, but it's okay. What happened there is just a typical racing incident. It's lap 1, turn 1. Lando has squeezed him to the side. Where the hell is he going to go? That is what happens at the Austin track. It always has. It always will. It's not a penalty. That being said, there was lots of things that happened in this race that weren't a penalty, that did get penalties. But that was one that the stewards definitely got right there. Right, moving on. Actually, Ocon is backwards at this point because Alex Albon gave him a little tap there into turn 1. Yes, again, another racing incident into turn 1. No need for a penalty, and the stewards got it right. So far, so good for our racing stewards. Meanwhile, further up the grid, Carlos Sainz is all over the back of Max Verstappen as the DRS gets activated. Someone who had a very good start was Lewis Hamilton, jumping up from 17th all the way to 12th. Surely this can't go wrong. Lewis Hamilton is out of the race on lap 3, and we see the return of the safety car. It's been so long. I think it's been 10 races without the safety car, but the safety car is back. The incident with Hamilton was basically identical to what happened to Russell yesterday. The exact same corner, coming through it, just loses the rear end. It seemed like on Russell's one, he had a bit more speed, which is to be expected in qualifying, because he went through the gravel trap and into the wall, whereas Hamilton just got stuck in the gravel trap. Either way, very strange that both Mercedes having near identical incidents on that corner there. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton is out of the race from there. We get our first snitch watch of the day, everybody, as Lando Norris complains that Max pushed him out. As I've said, no penalty. Safety car ends on lap 6, and it was a very bad restart for Charles Leclerc. Max read him very well, was all over the back of him from there. But Charles Leclerc in that Ferrari just has so much speed, and over a lap was able to build a 1 second gap to Verstappen from there. So it didn't really matter that his restart wasn't very good. Now, it gets a bit more worrying in the other Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. He complains of a lack of power as he comes out of the corners, and he can smell fuel in the car. This is on lap 9, and the gap between him and Norris starts to shorten a little bit, but they are able to get it fixed as they go along, thankfully for Carlos Sainz. We have a spin for Zhou Guanyu further down, who falls to the back of the pack, and Liam Lawson meets his new best friend Fernando Alonso yet again. It's so weird sometimes when certain drivers have a little bit of beef. They seem to just consistently find each other over and over and over again. And that has been Liam Lawson and Fernando Alonso this weekend. Lawson able to pass him pretty easily, though, for P11 on lap 12. Max Verstappen's told on lap 14 that his car has an issue that they will fix in the pit lane. Now, I haven't heard what this was from this, but it seems like it was okay after this. So, yeah, I guess it's fine. So, here's the first penalty of the day, everybody. And it goes to George Russell. 5-second penalty for forcing another driver off the track. I believe it was Valtteri Bottas. This was wrong on many, many levels. Incredibly harsh. I don't agree with it at all. Just not a penalty. And I think by doing this, the stewards just kind of gave themselves a rod for their own back, if that's the saying that I'm looking for there. Because they gave a penalty for this, so now they have to show consistency throughout the race, and anything that looks like this also has to have a penalty. But this wasn't a penalty. This was just a racing incident. It happens. We should move on from here. So George Russell gets the 5-second penalty. He wasn't happy. Toto Wolff wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. It was just wrong on every level. Meanwhile, there's a fantastic battle between Yuki and Nico Hülkenberg for P8. That's on lap 19. And it does end with Yuki Tsunoda pitting. Would like to see that carry on a bit more. Looked like Hülkenberg did have the pace on him, and it would have been interesting to see if that move would have come off if they both stayed on the track. Russell, though, despite his penalty, is making some moves. A great recovery from him throughout the entire race, it has to be said. Starting from the pit lane, he's now up to P8 on lap 22. This is when Carlos Sainz pits. At this point, he's still behind Max Verstappen. They're looking for the undercut, so he's attempting that at this point. Colapinto has a fantastic overtake on Fernando Alonso for P10 on lap 23. Fernando Alonso had a very anonymous race this weekend. No pace for him whatsoever. Whenever you saw him, he was just being overtaken. Meanwhile, Colapinto was absolutely fantastic. On lap 26, Max Verstappen comes into the pits for hard tyres, and he comes out quite a bit behind Carlos Sainz. Actually, they showed the graphic, and if he had pitted the lap after, he would have been ahead of Sainz by about a tenth, and the lap after that, he was a second behind. It was a weird little balancing act for Verstappen here. With the power of hindsight, seeing the pace throughout the race, there's no way in hell Verstappen could have beaten Sainz this weekend. But, you know, if he had pit on that lap, Sainz would have passed him later. So I think it was the right decision to kind of hold him out a little bit longer and just run his own race from that point onwards. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc pits from the lead on lap 27 for hard tyres and passes lead over to Lando Norris, who had not pit at this time. There's a fantastic freeway battle further down the grid between Stroll, Albon and Gasly for P13. Gasly has shown fantastic pace throughout the weekend, but I think on his second stint on the hard tyres, he really lost a lot of his pace. The Alpine was just not agreeing with the hard tyres at all, and then getting into a battle like this slowed him down as well. So for the first half of the race, looking good, then it kind of lost it from the second half. He does pass Albon, though. It looks like Albon went off the track. Gasly went off the track to get past Albon. He will get a penalty for that in a little bit. Lando Norris pits on lap 32 and Piastri pits on lap 33, both of them moving to the hards. Now we get a couple more penalties. Firstly for Gasly, leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Now, to be fair, That's the one penalty I think I agree with in this race. So well done. Because he did leave the track and gain an advantage, and he did gain the position. He should have just given it back and taking it back again, because Albon had no pace this weekend. It would have been relatively easy. Meanwhile, Yuki Tsunoda got 5 seconds for forcing another driver off the track, and I think this is the same thing as what happened with George Russell. It's the exact carbon copy. You know, it was a really, really soft penalty. It shouldn't have been there, but it was. Lando Norris, though, has fantastic pace from this point of the race. Just pitted to the hards, just setting fastest lap consistently over and over and over again. This coincides with Max Verstappen really starting to struggle on his hard tyres. And this is the point in the race where Norris is just cutting a second a lap from Max, just reeling him in and reeling him in over and over and over again. Franco Colapinto pits for the first time on lap 40 of 56. He really made those tyres work throughout the race. Russell then pits on lap 41. I think both of them started on the hards, made them work really well, and had that great pace on the mediums towards the end. Great stuff from both of them in this race. Meanwhile, Yuki Tsunoda spins into turn 1. And, you know, the talk over the last few weeks has been the whole discussion of, oh, it's Lawson versus Yuki for the Red Bull seat next year. In this race here, Liam Lawson did fantastically well. Yuki Tsunoda was very, very bad. We'll talk about that more as we get towards the end of this race. Great battle, though, between Colapinto and Magnussen for P11. You know, the Colapinto, wow, he is good. He is very, very, very good. And, you know, there's a lot of call for him to be in the Sauber seat next year. Personally, I'm still on the Gabriel Bortoleto hype train here. I do think Bortoleto is better than Colapinto, and I've said that, and people are like, oh yeah, but Colapinto has F1 experience. Like, yeah, well, why don't we give Bortoleto some F1 experience? Because I think he's really good. But we also, I think, I don't know how the Sauber seat's going to go. Apparently we'll find out in mid-November at some point, so that's something to look forward to, I guess. But now we start the beginning of the end of this race, because it's lap 42 and Lando Norris has DRS on Max Verstappen. And my God, what unfolded before us here was some incredible driving from both Lando and Max. Such good, consistent, great attacking driving from Lando, fantastic defending driving from Max Verstappen. I get the feeling that all that will be ignored because it's going to fall into a debate of, oh, was that a penalty? But why wasn't this a penalty? But I want this to be a penalty. When it should just be, wow, look how good these guys both drove in this little section here, because it was absolutely fantastic. Max was driving really well to keep the good gap between them. Despite Lando Norris having that DRS, Max was driving so well to just consistently eke out that gap every time. Despite being under a second, he always kept it around about 4 tenths, pushing it out to 7 tenths. That first sector, that like snake-like sector at the start of the track, just really consistent through there to kind of build that gap every time over and over and over again. So when we get onto that long straight at the back, Lando's not right on the back of him. Really good from him, and, you know, using the battery as well. Meanwhile, Lando Norris driving it fantastically well as well. At one point, Max Verstappen locks up into turn 1. Lando is all over the back of him, but still isn't able to make it work. There's a great moment where they properly just go wheel to wheel from like the end of the back straight to the pit, nearly to the pit straight. Really just like giving each other the perfect amount of room in this race here. And Martin Brundle even said, if you're a young racing driver and you're watching this, watch this sequence over and over and over again, because it was just a perfect example of driving from both of them. Really good. Meanwhile, at this point, somehow Colapinto got the fastest lap. Not really sure how that happened. Back to the battle for third, because it was incredible stuff from both of them. I cannot put into words how fantastic this was to watch if you haven't seen it yourself. Fantastic defensive driving from Max. 10 laps of this, I think it was, in the end. 10 or... Actually, it might have been a little bit more, actually. No, it was 11 laps in the end of this, of Max Verstappen having to defend from Lando Norris with DRS. Really, really impressive stuff. But on lap 53, Lando Norris finally gets past Max Verstappen for P3, and this is when the controversy begins, because they go from the back straight. Max is on the inside, Lando on the outside. As they go into the corner, they both go deep. Max pushes Lando out wide. Lando is off the track. When Lando comes back onto the track, he is ahead of Max Verstappen. So we get the biggest snitch watch we've ever seen in the history of our sport. Max Verstappen saying Lando overtook off the track. Lando saying Max pushed me off the track. Both of them going at it at the exact same time. Meanwhile, Esteban Ocon pits for softs and has the fastest lap. That's irrelevant because he was like 18th or something at this point. My opinion on this, I don't think any of them should have had a penalty. It should have just been a racing incident. I think we go back to what happened before with George. I mean, you could easily say, well, Max deserved a penalty here for pushing him off the track. But it's just like, that's racing. That's kind of just what happened. They didn't crash. He was tight to the corner. He was ahead at the apex, and he went across from there. Lando overtook off the track. You can say, yeah, he did, but you know what? This is great. I think honestly, that for me, that's just a racing incident, and I think Lando should have kept third, and we just go from there because I think it's ruined what was really, really good racing from here, and I think the rules are so kind of ambiguous when it comes to this because it's just like, okay, so what do you want to do? So it's like, okay, so Max, where can Max go from there? Nowhere. Okay, so Lando's going to have to just stop or hit him. Okay, so Lando can't do anything. Okay, so then what can Max do? So Max can go, I don't know, brake 100 meters earlier and just let Lando go through. So either way, it's bad racing. So just let it happen. And it happened. I've already seen a bit of... If you go online, of course it is all Max should be murdered for this because he is the devil. But on Sky, as I was coming up there, and their discussion point was, should Lando have let Max go back through and then overtaken him again? But I don't agree with either point of view, really. Firstly, Max shouldn't be murdered because he is quite a lovely guy. And, when you get around the whole thing that he's not your favourite driver, you'll be okay. Don't worry. You'll grow up soon. But then the Sky point of view, is Lando should have just let him go past and overtaken him again. Well, he's just tried for 11 laps to overtake him, and that was the best shot he had. And then he had, 4 laps to go? So who's to say that he can do it again, So if I was the steward, I would have just let it go. But I don't really care about the rules and regulations. So there you go. If it was up to me, no penalties for anyone. Do whatever you like. It's more fun. Anyway, where are we? Lando Norris does get a penalty, I should say that. 5-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, which eventually will push him down to 4th. But as we cross the line, Charles Leclerc wins, by the way. We haven't spoken about the front of the race for quite some time. Leclerc wins. Sainz brings it home in P2 to make it a Ferrari 1-2. Fantastic stuff. Max Verstappen does get third. Norris finishes on the road in third place. He gets a 5-second penalty. So Max Verstappen gets promoted up to third place. Oscar Piastri is in 5th. There was a bit of discussion about Lando Norris's track limits and possibly getting another penalty from that. So that might be one to keep an eye on, because if he does, Lando will then fall to 5th and Piastri will be promoted to 4th. So that's one to keep an eye on. George Russell, absolutely incredible here. P6 from the pit lane in a Mercedes that was really struggling this weekend. I know he had the front row in the sprint, but since that sprint qualifying, the Mercedes has been nowhere. So to pull that out and finish 6th, fantastic stuff from George. Really, really good. Sergio Perez is 7th. Another anonymous race for Sergio. Really just nowhere. When you're being beaten by George Russell, who started from the pit lane in a car that is slower than yours, you're in trouble. And he was in trouble anyway. Hulkenberg, another good points for him, 8th place. Liam Lawson, his first race back, in 9th place. Fantastic result for Liam Lawson there. Franco Colapinto finishes the top 10, getting 1 point for the Williams team. Really, really good performance from him as well. Sad to see his fastest lap go to Ocon, but I think the Alpines are in the championship battle with the Williams, so it's a bit of a Daniel Ricciardo move on Lando Norris there, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Magnussen just misses out in P11. Gasly is 12th. As I said, lost a lot of pace in that second stint. Fernando Alonso has an anonymous race but finishes up in 13th. Yuki Tsunoda, I was praising him so much in the sprint, but really had no pace here whatsoever. Finished in 14th place. Lance Stroll was 15th. Alex Albon in 16th place. My God. When you compare that to Colapinto in 10th, there's a real gap there between the two of them. And in the last race in Singapore, we spoke about is Albon being discovered here in terms of, his teammates at Williams have been Logan Sargent and Nicholas Latifi. Now he has Colapinto, someone who is quite decent. Is he being outed a bit as someone who is maybe placed on too high of a pedestal? And he's done nothing this weekend to say that is wrong, because Colapinto destroyed him here. Valtteri Bottas finishes in 17th, Esteban Ocon in 18th, but he did have that late pit stop for the soft tyres. Zhou Guanyu is the last of the finishers in 19th, and then one DNF in the race, of course, was Lewis Hamilton on lap 3. The biggest controversy, though, I feel, is they've changed the trophy. They've been promoting this trophy all week, of this little tyre with a little Mickey Mouse teddy bear looking thing to stood on top of it, and when they got to the podium they just gave him the tyre. Where's the Mickey Mouse bear gone? That's the biggest controversy. Everyone's going to be talking, was it a penalty, was it not a penalty? Who cares about penalties? Where's the bear thing gone? My goodness. Let's get our priorities straight for once in our lives. Bit of respect for the bear thing. Anyway, that was the race. I hope you enjoyed, because I enjoyed that an awful lot. And we've got another one next weekend in Mexico, so that's going to be a lot of fun too. We'll be back tomorrow for all things driver ratings. I look forward to seeing you there. And then we're back next week for Mexico. And it's a normal race weekend, no sprint shenanigans to think of. So we'll have the preview on the Friday, qualifying reactions on Saturday, race reactions on Sunday, driver ratings on Monday, all that to come. Subscribe for all that. I can't wait to see you there. Until next time, goodbye!